What's going on, you guys? Welcome. Today we are talking about the Dallas. The Dallas is the Tier 6 light cruiser. It's pretty solid ship. I actually like this ship. There are some issues with the ship that we are going to look at later. But overall, I did a decent job with it. Now, you guys, one word on cruisers that it's very important to understand before we play any cruiser, whether it's a light cruiser or a heavy cruiser, is that cruisers are very good or good at many things, but they are not excellent at almost anything. So what does that mean? Cruisers are what they call a master, a jack of all trades, and a master of none. So when you play cruisers, guys, keep that in mind, that you are going to have good armor, good speed, good maneuverability, but you're not going to feel like you're excellent at any of those. A destroyer or a battleship will have perhaps more maneuverability, more speed, better guns, better armor, and you're going to be very good at many things, but you're not going to be a specialist. You're going to be good at many things. So you're going to have to be very adaptable at many things. You will need to adapt yourself to many situations. You need to be very mindful of what's happening on the battlefield to be effective with cruisers. And also, that means that you have to make the right calls. Sometimes, when you have too many options, making the right call becomes more difficult. Should I push forward? Should I retreat? Should I help this guy or the other guy? It's a little more difficult to play cruisers on that regard, you guys, because you don't have a fixed role or amount of roles like a destroyer or a battleship that you know your role when you're a battleship is to support your team with heavy salvo. When you're a destroyer, you have a few roles that you can embrace too. But cruisers can do everything, but they're not excellent really at anything, on my opinion. So you need to be very, very mindful of that limitation of cruisers. Now, let me go back to the
Enemy
dock for a
team is
moment.
about to win.
Now, guys, I want to show you how I did with it, but I also want to let you know that I'm a pretty new player to this game. I started back in September, and we are now in January. So a little over 3,000 battles, but I'm by no means a veteran, but I have learned a lot from my teammates and also by myself. So I wanted to let you know, like, to show you how I did with the Dallas. It's not as bad as you might think. I actually did a 50% win rate, 5% MVP rate. So for this ship, you guys, it's not so bad. It's not a Sims or something like that you can be like more proud of, but it's not bad. You can do the grind through the Dallas pretty quickly. You only need to farm about, what is it, 70,000, 50. I forgot how much it was. I think it's around 70,000 XP on the ship. I don't advise you to waste your free XP on the Brooklyn. Just do the grind, you guys. It's not so bad. Now, let's go back to the ship. The ship is actually pretty solid. It was interesting to play. Like I showed you, I did okay with it. Nothing to boast about, but it is the only light cruiser, you guys, without torpedoes and with secondary guns instead of torpedoes. Let's look at the numbers of the ship. So here's the survivability, maneuverability, guns, and all that stuff. The ship does have 10 guns, which is more guns than any other light cruiser. It has secondary guns, and it has one of the lowest, the lowest together with the Nuremberg chance of fire. It has the best anti-aircraft out of all the light cruisers, and that's going to help you out. But now, before we get into that, let's go look at the numbers and see how this ship sizes up against the competition. Here are the numbers of the Dallas. We're going to look at the numbers. These are the same numbers, by the way, you guys, that are on the game. I just decided to put them side by side with the other light cruisers. So here's the Dallas. These are the numbers of the Dallas. Here are the other light cruisers. And here is the average of the light cruisers. That average includes the other cruisers, not the Dallas, because I want to compare the Dallas to the other light cruisers. So here we have a variance, which is the difference between the Dallas and the average of the other light cruisers. And here we have the same variance, but shown as a percentage. And lastly, you guys, I have a rank. That number back there tells you whether the Dallas has the first, second, third, fourth, or fifth largest number out of all the light cruisers. So the first thing that jumps at us is that the Dallas is the biggest light cruiser. By the way, you guys, if I highlighted it red, it's because I feel that's an unfavorable variance. If I highlighted it green, it's because it's favorable. Now, the first thing we notice is that it's very big. It's the largest, heaviest light cruiser. That affects, obviously, our maneuverability. If we see down here, we can see that the Dallas has terrible acceleration. When we look at maximum turn speed and turn time, they are not, they're not very good. They're not very good compared to the competition. It falls short of maneuverability, in my opinion. However, a good thing about the Dallas is that it has more hit points. It has more hit points than the competition, 10%, 11% almost. It is the ship that has the most hit points on the light cruiser line. However, we can see that the torpedo protection is not very good. The overall armor, it's not that bad. It's only third best, so it's not that good either. But the biggest problem is the torpedo. If you get torped on this thing, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel that torpedo. Your hit points are gonna fall like crazy. So don't get torped on this thing. Try to keep your distance from destroyers. That way you can survive better. Now, let's move on to the next main thing. This is the guns, you guys. The guns on this thing are, in my opinion, they're pretty good. They do have some problems, okay, the main guns. So let's look at the main guns. The main guns do have some issues, but if you notice, you guys, the damage per minute and the damage per minute right here and the damage per salvo is actually pretty high. Sorry, you guys. The damage per salvo is actually pretty high, and the damage per minute it's decent. Especially when it comes to HE, it's actually pretty decent. Damage per minute and also damage per salvo it's up there. The main guns are up there. Where they suffer is the reload time. The reload time is the slowest of all the light cruisers, so it is pretty slow. However, it does have 10 guns, so it has a little bit more guns. So it takes a teeny weeny bit more time than their average to reload. Actually, it's not that good. It takes about 7% more than the average, so that's almost 8%. That's quite significant, you guys. You are going to notice sometimes that you're gonna be trying to rush that shot because you're like, it's still reloading. So it is pretty slow. The biggest problem, however, in my opinion, with the main guns is the chance of fire. So you guys, it has a 4% chance of fire, so it has the lowest together with the Nuremberg. However, let's remember that the Dallas has 10 guns, right? It has 10 guns. So what I did down here is calculate a prorated chance of fire. So this number down here is taking into account the chance of fire with the reload time and the number of guns. But we can still see, you guys, that the chance of fire it's only third best. It's the third best ship at setting fires. So that's not a good thing, you guys, especially when your sole specialty is guns and you don't have torpedoes. The main guns are not very good at setting fires. Guys, before we move to secondaries, I just wanted to post this correction. I just realized that my DPM with the HE was screwed up because it was averaging the Leander. So these are the correct numbers, you guys. It's taking out the Leander, but we can still see that the Dallas retains an advantage over the other light cruisers. It's pretty above average. So I just wanted to post this really quickly so you guys see the right numbers. Now, guys, let's look at the secondary guns. If you look at the secondary guns, you have 6 guns with a range of 5 kilometers. And your DPM with these things is actually quite high. You have about 18,000 damage per minute, which is about, if you look at up here, the damage per minute of the AP and HE, it is like 40% of your DPM, of your total DPM, 40 to 30%, depending on what you're using, that you have locked into your secondary guns. So you have to remember to use those secondary guns. Now, when I combine the prorated rate of fire of the main guns with the prorated rate of chance of fire of the secondary guns, I actually get a 4.3%. That is, you guys, the highest chance of fire of any light cruiser. So at middle to close range, it will have the highest chance of fire. Now, you guys, one of the shortcomings of this ship is going to be the number of the torpedoes. It has no torpedoes, so this is obviously a weakness for the ship. You don't have the torpedoes. However, you do have your secondaries that, as we saw, they have a substantial. They can make a substantial amount of damage when we're using them, but it's not going to be, an explosive one-time damage like the torpedoes do it. But it's going to be rather steady damage being done with your secondary guns. So you forfeit the 18, this average of, where is it? Where is the DPM of torpedoes? Right there. Okay, so on average, the average light cruiser has 33,924 DPM. You give it up for the 18,000 on your secondaries, which is not bad. When you think about how often you use torpedoes on your cruisers, they are kind of hard to use because cruisers are not that maneuverable compared to destroyers. And, well, it's one thing for the other, right? Secondary guns are more readily available for use. You don't have to angle yourself out so much. You don't have to expose so much armor. So your secondaries can be a little bit more useful sometimes. Sometimes your torpedoes will be more useful, but that is the trade. You give up your torpedoes for those secondaries. Now, the last thing that we're going to look at, you guys, is actually the biggest advantage of this ship. It's the anti-aircraft, you guys. The anti-aircraft of this ship is insane. It's the second best is the Leander, and it's far behind the Dallas. The average is 1,100, and the Dallas has almost 1,700, so it's almost 50% better than the average cruiser. You will notice that this is quite helpful when you're trying to get up in the lead of your team. Like you can be, and you usually will be, if you position yourself correctly, the ship that knocks out the most planes or the second one on the game. So make sure you're using that anti-aircraft and the aircraft alert, because it will put you up there. Okay, you guys, now let's go back to the ship and take a look at equipment and the other stuff that we need to look at. Equipment and the commander skills and all that stuff. All right, you guys, the last thing we're going to take a look at is the equipment, supplies, the commander, and also the elite bonus. So let's begin with the easier one. The elite bonus, if you decide to make this ship elite, in my opinion, this is the best bonus that you can choose. You can choose between, I never look at the meritorious service, the last one. I never choose that one. But the escort specialization is quite good. It enhances your speed, which you need a little bit more. It enhances your main battery and also your AA. The second one only enhances your AA, so I feel that's not the best way to go, but to each their own. The supplies, you guys, you can combine a lot, but this is what I recommend. I recommend going with the improved crew rations. Are quite useful on anything. The refined diesel is pretty good. It gives you a little bit more speed, and it gives you a little more traverse speed, so a little bit more maneuverability. That is quite useful for this ship, you guys. And the last thing, you guys, believe it or not, it's the extra AA ammo. That gives you, a little bit more of an edge, enhancing your AA, making sure you're taking down those planes and scoring high on your team. Okay, guys, as far as equipment, this is what worked for me. Obviously, you can try many, many different combinations, but this is the final combination that worked for me the best. I tried at first the Auxiliary Armament Mod 1 for the AA. That one wasn't that useful, to be honest. Then I tried the Aiming System Modification 1, and that one was okay, but the one that for me was the best, the better one was Aiming System Mod 1. It makes the main turrets really, really fast, so even when you're maneuvering your ship from one side to the other, changing sides, your turrets just change really quickly. And that one is, for me, the one that worked the best. The other one that worked for me very well is this one, Traverse Acceleration, Steering Gear Mod 1. You need to enhance the traverse speed somehow to make it more maneuverable. So that's a good option. If you don't do it here, I recommend you do it here with Steering Gear Modification 2. But I feel that for this ship, this particular cruiser, Steering Modification 1 is better. It's enough, okay? Now, the other modification I liked was Concealment. That was kind of something unusual for me, an unusual way to go, but it helped a lot. It actually helped a lot. The concealment was quite useful when I needed to take cover. I would just stop shooting, and at a very relatively close range, the ship disappeared. It makes your concealment quite low, 7.18 kilometers, which is, I think, is pretty good. So that is the way I went there. I went with concealment, but obviously you can go a different way. You can go with the traverse acceleration, and in that case, you can go with propulsion modification 1. You can try different things. And last, you guys, let's look at the commander. My commander is on this ship. What is this? That's not the right one. Where are you? Brooklyn. My commander, I did pay for the extra commander. Obviously, you don't have to do that. But let's look at skills 1 through 7. We don't have to go that far down because you're not likely to be that far down. But Underwater Protection Expert, it gives you a little bit of more protection against those torpedoes. This is very important, battlefield support. It adds 1 sonar, 1 air defense, and 1 radar. The Worcester has all of those 3. So down the line, that's going to be very, very useful because you're going to have 3 extra skills per battle. So that is a very, very useful skill. Skill number 3, I would go with either Artillery Maintenance Expert or with High Alert. I went with High Alert just because that is the edge that this commander has over other commanders, and I didn't want to waste it. Number 4, you are, pick that one, Air Defense Expert, so that your air defense is even more deadly. Number 5, Survivalist. I think that's a good one to pick. Some people like to pick Daredevil. That's not a bad skill either. That's quite good because the Worcester does lose hit points quite quickly, so it's not a bad one either. So either one it's fine. It just depends on how you want to customize your ship. The skill number 6, you can either enhance your sonar, or in this case I went with Generalist because this commander has a little bit of an edge on the Generalist skill. So in this case, I went with Generalist, but if you had been a regular commander, I would have gone with Recon and Surveillance. And on number 7, I picked Fully Prepared just because the other skills do not benefit it at all. And that's it, you guys. That's what you need to do with your commander. We will be looking at the other skills as we advance more and more. Okay, you guys, that's all I have to say in this episode. Next episode, we're going to look at some gameplay, how to actually play it. Now that we understand what we're playing with, let's see how to play it. Like, what are some tips that I can give you to play this ship, and also hopefully give you some good demos of how to play the ship. And that's it, you guys. If you like this video, please like and subscribe for more, and I will see you next time.